All right, we're on to part 4 of the genealogy stories. It's 1942. My father Max has been born in Los Banos, California. Grows up in the Bay Area, the Stockton, Modesto area, because again, Grandma got sent forward to that area. She caught on, got divorced, remarried a Mr. Brodell. Mr. Brodell was a fine stepdad, fine step-grandpa, great-grandpa. Loved him, man. Really good guy. But my dad was clearly not his half-sibling's full brother, even though they lied. Again, there was lots of lies told. Oh, he's got throwback genetics from his great-grandpa. Never mind if the DNA test will support any of that. That's another story for another day. But the point is, Dad was called the Tracy Mexican growing up. Fought his way through lots and lots of things. He was the dark skin. And you got to remember, Stockton and Modesto and Lodi at that time, they did not have year-round Latin populations. They might be tolerated during the harvest season, but then it was back to Mexico you go. So, the fact that Dad was actually born into a family, had the legal last name of Madden, daughter was the son of a white woman. He was his own cross to bear, trust me. Stockton was not a nice place to Dad. Dad dropped out of high school by the time he was 16, and he went off into the Army, where he became a fairly celebrated boxer. Until some other things happened in his life, and the military didn't become a career. Got out of there, got married, got divorced, got married, got an annul, got married to my mom. Oh yeah, and he had the first son with his first wife, my older half-brother. So, fast forward to 1974, thereabouts, 73, I guess. They're living in Portland, Oregon. They joined the Mormon Church. And one of the things about the Mormon Church... let me just slide back a little. Let's leave it there. Mormon Church really stresses on genealogy. Very important to your ability to get into the kingdom of heaven. And we'll go into why that is later, because there's some deep stuff to that. But anyhow, they eventually join the Mormon Church, and thus genealogy becomes very, very important. And Dad doesn't know who his real father is. And this becomes an issue. And especially given the racial undertones going on in 72, 74, 76 with the Mormon Church and the priesthood and African Americans and what have you. And the fact that they had their South American missions, especially down in Brazil, they were starting to have some issues because they were trying to make sure that nobody with the mark of Cain, African genealogy, African genetics, was allowed to get the priesthood. Because if you gave them the priesthood, you'd be admitting that the all-knowing God that allowed you to give out that priesthood didn't notice the mark of Cain, which becomes problematic because it should notice it. It shouldn't be able to. Anyhow. So, genealogy became a thing, became very important. And with Grandma taking it to the grave, Grandma refusing to tell anybody, there was those thoughts that, oh God, Dad can't go to heaven if he can't get his genealogy done. If Dad can't go to heaven for his genealogy, then neither can I. Yeah. I was a little kid. Don't blame me. So, I became obsessed with genealogy, as did my mom, and my mom was really good at it, and she was able to chase quite a few branches of her family. But we had this problem. We could chase all these other branches, all kinds of hundreds of years back. My dad, the paternal line, the one that actually gave me the last name that I have to explain, one that might actually give me a last name that matched my skin tone, I knew nothing about it. Nothing. My dad didn't either. And again, Dad was in the same position, I'm sure, that I was in growing up. You have the whole feeling of you can't really defend yourself being accused of being something because you don't know. So if somebody dropped the N-word on me, I couldn't say I'm not because I didn't know. Somebody called me Mexican, called me Puerto Rican, called me Cuban, called me Italian, Middle Eastern, Jewish. It didn't matter. I did not have the truth with which to defend myself. And at the same time, I also understood that I didn't want to be a bigot in any way, shape, or form because, as luck would have it, if I decided to choose bigotry, whichever one I chose would be the one that later on would turn out to be my genetics. It's just Murphy's Law, So I wasn't about to become, an anti-Arab and find out I was Arabic. Anti-Mexican and find out I was Mexican, or anti-Puerto Rican and find out I was Puerto Rican. Just, I knew luck wasn't going to favor me in that department, so I wasn't allowed to be racist or bigoted against anybody. Pretty simple. So, and I do kind of shudder to wonder kind of a prick I might have become had I not had the dark skin and the curly hair. Keep me humble, maybe? I don't know. So anyway, it's the 70s. They're starting their genealogy. And I'm probably, I hit about 10 years of age at 78. And things are coming to a head about genealogy and grandma's lies. And I'm old enough to be kind of angry about it. And I've also understood that my grandmother, it's another story. My grandmother truly did not care for me at all. And so, again, my dad's second marriage, she didn't like my mom. They didn't get along. My mom was Mormon, very churchy. That didn't help. So, yeah. So Grandma and I didn't get along, and then to find out she'd been lying all this time, and even I could tell that the blue eyes and green eyes don't beget brown eyes. It just doesn't happen. And the blood types didn't match up. And it was clear, and then when Grandma tried to say, the baby's got switched in the hospital. No. It was clear that my dad was my grandmother's son. He favored his mom. You could see the resemblance between he and his mother. He was just a darker skinned version. So there was no baby got switched in the hospital. That wasn't going to hold water either. But she held to it, and people feared her enough to just not push her. And so she did exactly what she said she was going to do. She took the name to the grave. But I, at 10, had made that promise. I was going to find out. And I pushed and pushed and pushed. And yeah. That became a real pain in the ass. And again, about 78, 79, right around this same time, Iran-Contra goes down. And all of a sudden, my dark skin and curly hair that looked so cute and looked so interesting and was so exotic now looked dangerous. Because I was starting to get to be big like a teenager. And all of a sudden, I was a big, dark-skinned, frowny-faced teenager. Looked like pictures of those guys that had been hijacking airplanes, causing death and destruction in the late 70s, early 80s. And so I started taking lumps, both figuratively and literally, or looking Arabic, or looking Jewish. And I remember catching myself, but I'm not, and then stopping myself because that's not a good defense. I'm not black. So what? It's not okay no matter who it's happening to, and you should act accordingly. So yeah. I ran through censuses. I called police departments. I went through all the crazy stories about how maybe they had killed my grandfather, and so I was looking through missing person reports in southern Arizona. And looking through, I called down to the sheriff's department down there in the Eloy area, a couple of them, and I was talking to one of them to see if maybe they'd try to find out what kind of missing persons or just found in the desert bodies that might have had turned in 40, 41, 42. You know, it's making maybe if the story was true that they killed my grandfather, that there might be record of it somewhere, that a body might have been found, and I might be able to look through and see if any of these stories match. And I was actually had it explained to me that in 1941 they didn't even do paperwork on dead Mexicans, and that in the 2000s when I was doing 1990s and 2000s when I was doing this research, Sheriff Flat told me that every new development they did out there in that desert area between Phoenix and Tucson, that they almost always had to stop production, stop work, stop excavations, because they found graves, and they had to determine whether they were old graves and thus needed an archaeologist, newer graves like pioneers and thus just needed to reinter them, which still needed an archaeologist, or if they were even newer and you needed to call the police because there needed to be a police report. But there was always bodies being found, and most of them were back to pioneer times where somebody had just been buried in a shallow grave and left there. So, yeah, the 90s and the aughts, it looked like Grandma was right. I wasn't going to be able to find out, but I didn't believe her. I'm stubborn. And DNA research was right around the corner. It's a good place to stop. Number 4 on this DNA genealogy journey, my genealogy kink.